Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mike from M&R Automotive. Today we have a 2021 Ford Super Duty and we've installed the M&R hood mount kit. It offers amber DRL as well as powerful white light. So here's the two different types of pods that we use for the hood mount kits. We have the standard version and we have the Pro. The difference between the standard and the Pro version is the backlighting. On the standard version you have two amber strips that light up amber, where opposed to the Pro version, everything gets backlit. The Pro series puts out a little bit more light and it does have larger reflectors and it is more of a spot beam pattern. Alright, so in terms of installation, it's very similar. They both have U-cradles and they attach directly to the M&R bracket. So let's go ahead and start with the standard. Alright, so first thing we want to do, we want to peel back this rubber trim piece and it's going to expose a bolt that we're going to use to slide our M&R bracket. So here it is, it's a fender bolt, it's a 10mm. So this is how the M&R bracket looks like. There is no up and down or orientation between driver and passenger. It just reuses the factory bolt and kind of offsets it to the side. So what we're going to do, we're going to rethread the same bolt that we just removed in the previous step, and we are going to reinstall this bracket. So keep note that the flap of the bracket comes out from on the outside of the fender. Alright, so now we can tuck in the access rubber back underneath the fender. And this provides us a nice mount to thread our U-cradle from our light pod. The package is going to come with two lights, and you will need to assemble the cradle onto the M&R pod itself. There is, if you look at the thread, there is a large thread and a small thread. And as far as Allen screws, there is a large Allen screw and a smaller one. So the large one holds the cradle together, and then the smaller one will allow you to adjust the angles up and down. So I'm not going to go ahead and tighten them all the way. I like to do it on the vehicle after I align and angle them. So I'm just going to kind of like finger tighten them. And same thing on this side. Excellent. Let's go ahead and mount these on the vehicle. So now I'm going to go ahead and thread the M&R provided mounting hardware. We're going to feed it through the cradle and we're going to install it through the M&R bracket. So make sure you use a washer and a nut. Alright, awesome. And in order to tighten it, we're going to use a wrench on top and a wrench on the bottom. It is a nylon lock nut, so it is a little bit difficult to go through it because it has nylon inside of it to prevent it from loosening it. So you're not cross-threading it. If it gives you resistance, it just means that the nylon portion of the washer is working. So this is how you angle the light with the bottom nut here. So some people like the lights facing forward, some people like it towards the ditches. If you do loosen the nut in the back, you could also tilt it up and down. So let's do the same thing on the passenger side. So for the passenger side, I'm actually going to take the antenna out. It's going to be easier to install the bracket, and we're going to reinstall it after we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and peel the trim piece up, expose the bolt, get a socket on it. I'm going to take the bolt out. Now I'm going to rethread the bolt that we just removed, and we're going to reinstall it. Alright, we're going to put the rubber underneath, and we're going to install the light pod. Now that we have the M&R brackets installed on a truck, let me show you how I'm going to assemble the pod before we install it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and flip the light on its face, and then I'm going to install these nuts and the nut holders. So what you do, you just slide it in there. The thread's going to go this way when we mount the U-cradle. So I'm just going to go like this, drop it in. So just drop it in as well. Perfect. So now that the nuts are dropped into the holders, we're going to go ahead and install the U-bracket. There is different ways you can install it, either like this or backwards. I prefer the opening facing forward. So I'm going to go ahead and slide it and use a supplied bolt to thread it through the bracket and into the nut that we placed inside the holder. Keep in mind also the way you tighten it, you can also adjust the height of how it's going to sit on the bracket. So I personally like my pods as close to the hood as possible, so I'm going to go press on this bracket inward when I'm tightening it. We can still adjust this afterwards when it's installed on the truck. And that holder prevents that nut that we dropped into that place from moving. So now this is how the pod looks assembled. with the U cradle on the bottom of it. Let's do the same thing to the second one. So I'm going to do the same thing on the second pod. I'm going to grab the nuts, I'm going to drop them into the holders, I'm going to install the cradle, and I'm going to use the button head bolts to attach the cradle to the light. I'm going to adjust the cradle as close to the light as possible. This makes it nice and sleek and close to the hood. And do the same thing on the other side. So now that we have the two pods assembled, let's install them on the M&R brackets that are on the truck. Thread the M&R hardware through the cradle, and we're going to attach it to the M&R mount, and we're going to use supplied hardware to secure the light to the M&R bracket. Alright, let's get these tightened up. So I do want to point out that we still have space in the bracket. Even though there's an antenna here, it's not interfering, so it's actually on the middle of the slot. And if you do want to aim these lights outward, you'll just aim them this way, and the antenna's not in the way. Alright, so let's get them wired up. Alright, so let's go over the wiring. The pods have 3 wires coming out of them. You have the black wire, which is the ground. You have the red wire, which is the power to the main function of the light, the powerful white light. And you also have a white wire, that's the DRL. So ultimately you'll need 2 power sources and a ground to connect these lights. So with the provided M&R wiring harness, you are going to be able to bridge those 2 lights together for 2 different power sources, and we're going to extend it to either auxiliary switches, or if your truck is not equipped with auxiliary switches, you can use an aftermarket harness or a M&R wireless wiring harness. So let me show you how this works. So with the M&R wiring harness, you do get 2 grounding straps, and that's going to take care of both of the black wires, one for the driver's side and one for the passenger. As far as the red and white, we are going to provide you with a wiring harness to bridge them. So I want to show you that because our connections are on the passenger side, we have a Y intersection. So we're going to actually keep it on the side of the battery or the power source. One end is going to go across the engine bay to the driver's side, and the other end of the wiring harness is going to tap into the auxiliary switches. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm going to do. One thing I do want to address is a critical point in the engine bay is this hinge, because when you open it and close it, it can be a pinch point for your wire. So when routing a wire, go again around it. So what I like to do, because there's a rubber grommet here, I'm going to actually go on top, and after we do all the connections, I'm going to secure tuck it underneath. So that way when you open and close the hood, it's not going to pinch any wiring. Alright, so the Y interception is going to stay on the passenger side. One end of the wiring harness we're going to stretch across, and the second end of the wiring harness is going to go to a power source. So let me show you how I do the connections on the passenger side first, and then we'll hop over to the driver's. Alright, so let me show you how I do the grounding strap. So the grounding strap is a black cable. So I'm going to go black to black, and I'm going to crimp these 2 together. And then the eyelid portion, I'm going to use this bolt, this factory bolt, on the fender in order to slip it through the bolt and reinstall it. I'm going to slide it right through the eyelid. Alright, now let's do the red and white wires. Same thing, we're going to go white to white, red to red. So I'm going to crimp this here, white to white. And we'll do the same thing here, red to red. Cool. So now we're all done on the passenger side. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the driver. Alright, so on the driver's side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go red to red. We're going to go white to white. And while I'm doing this, I do want to mention that these are waterproof connectors when you apply heat to them. So after our install, when we're tightening everything up, you do want to apply some heat either with a heat gun or a lighter, and they're going to shrivel up and become waterproof. Alright, so with the grounding strap on the driver's side, we're going to do the same thing, black to black. So on the other end of the grounding strap, we're going to go ahead and use this bolt. I'm going to reinstall the factory bolt, and we're going to reinstall it into the fender. Pretty much is bridging white to white, red to red, black to black. On the passenger side, it's the same colors, but there's a Y intersection, so each contact's going to have 2 wires coming out of it, and the other end of the wiring harness is going to go to a power source. Because this truck is equipped with auxiliary switches, let me show you how to hook that up. Alright, so if your vehicle has overhead auxiliary switches inside the cab, that means you probably already have the auxiliary module installed on your truck. What you want to do, we actually want to lift up this whole box, and there's going to be auxiliary wires underneath it. So there's 2 tabs. You want to press them and lift up, and underneath it you have a bundle of wires. So every wire corresponds to a overhead switch, and depending which one you want to use is what color wire we're going to use for the project. Alright, so let's take a look at the wiring. I also have a chart that I pulled up online of all 6 auxiliary switches. Auxiliary 1, that's brown with a green tracer, 25 amps. Auxiliary 2 is violet with an orange tracer, 25 amps. Aux 3 is blue with a green tracer, 25 amps. Aux 4 is gray with a brown tracer, 25 amps. Aux 5 is brown with blue tracer, 40 amps. And Aux 6 is gray with orange tracer. So for this hood mount kit, we're going to choose 2 wires, 2 auxiliary switches, switch 2 and 3. The blue wire, we're going to connect that to the red wire, which is the powerful white light, and that's going to be switch number 2. And then the white wire, that's the amber DRL, we'll connect it to the violet wire with the orange stripe. Bam, so I think we're ready to test out our wiring. So now that we've got everything wired up, let me show you how it works. So switch number 2, that's going to be the amber DRL. And switch number 3, that's going to be the powerful white light. And just for you guys to know, installing the standard pod kit is identical. The wire codes and everything is the same. Thank you guys for watching. Please stay tuned for a night apple video, and I know you guys are going to absolutely love this product.